ML. We move into our next session, which is a panel discussion that will try to understand the key considerations for deploying LLMs effectively, including customization strategies, infrastructure needs, and maintaining output consistency. Our panelists this evening will discuss and deliberate on the topic, employing LLMs from research to reality. I'd like to introduce our panelists to you before they come up on stage. We have with us this evening Lekha Priyadarshini. Lekha is a generative AI lead at Kyndryl with over 13 years of experience in AI and data science. Lekha specializes in driving transformative AI projects, architecting advanced AI infrastructures, and leading high-impact AI initiatives. She is recognized for expertise in generative AI, LLMs, and data science, delivering innovative solutions that enhance efficiency, drive business growth, and ensure ethical AI practices. Joining on the panel is Jinil Parekh. Jinil is a software engineer at Google and a speaker. She has been working on fraud detection for maps and is currently leading multiple LLM projects for content modernization and optimizing processes. She is also a Google WTM Scholar 2017, performing outreach activities to foster a local community of women in tech. We'd like to welcome Jinil. Please give her a big round of applause. Joining Jinil is also Ruchi Avasthi. Ruchi is a seasoned machine learning scientist currently working at the Pune Storage in the Gen AI R&D team, where she focuses on building scalable generative AI-based products. And moderating this panel is Kaustuba V. Kaustuba is a solution architect at Microsoft, specializing in cloud computing and AI technologies. With over a decade of experience, she has made significant contributions to organizations such as Dell International Services and IBM. Ladies and gentlemen, please give them a huge round of applause as we welcome them to this panel discussion. And with that, it's over to you, Kaustuba.
Hi, everyone. I hope I'm audible to everyone. And I see that you're all having a great time here today. So let's start off with a great discussions on LLMs. Hi, Ruchi. Hi, Jinal. And hi, Lekha. Welcome to the panel discussion. So my start-off question should be on LLMs. Like, we are hearing LLMs dominating everywhere, and we are seeing that it's capturing imaginations. And everyone is trying to do something cool with LLMs. But they find it hard to make it production ready. They might have some ideas, but they're not able to make it production ready. So according to you all, what will be the good recipe to go from research to productionizing these LLMs? Maybe we can go with Ruchi.
I think a good recipe to what one should think before productionizing the LLM is thinking of various factors that that would be affecting how LLMs are working in production. So it could be your cost, it could be accuracy, it could be what LLM you are using, it could be the use case that you're trying to solve. I think a trade-off between what you're trying to solve and how much are you paying for that is very important. Because I think AI has become very convenient right now. AI has come at a lot of convenience for all of us. It is very easy for us to now at least have POCs. But to make it scalable, to make it cost effective is where, and to drive a lot of business impact is where a lot of our mind should go in. So I think a trade-off between these factors is what makes a good recipe for a production-ready LLM.
Thank you so much for that, Ruchi. Can we have your opinion on this, Lekha?
Sure. Yeah, I resonate with your response that having the key factors into consideration, like what kind of cost it involves, and what is the infrastructure overhead that the company is ready to be incurring on adopting a LLM or maybe deploying it into production are very important. Besides that, it's not always important that a company is looking for the LLM as a capability, but it's very important for any of the organization to first align to the task and see what it is solving first, right? It has to have the problem statement in hand first and see if LLM. I understand that companies are very excited with the LLM's capabilities nowadays, but having a very good problem statement in hand with alternatives is of vital importance. And yes, when you have that problem statement in hand, I believe you can decide whether to go on to a domain-specific model or a pre-trained open source API-based LLMs, which are large language models. For example, if my task is handling my task is like building a chat bot based on a GPT model, but then I am not looking at the precision, but I am looking at the latency. Then I might go for a Distilbert model, right? Rather than always relying on llamas or maybe GPT-4. So having such kind of nuances in mind is very important. And like I've already said, overlooking the infrastructure overheads is something that the company should be avoiding as of now. So latency and speed, domain-specific or task-specific models for companies, for industries like medical industries, they would need more domain-specific data rather than having a very widely used models like on a general purpose models like GPT-4o. These models rely mostly on the domain-specific data and are very sensitive about the data security aspects as well. So choosing between these models is very important based on the tasks that these companies have when they try to move to production.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Thank you.
True. Jinal, can we have an answer from your side on this?
Sure. Am I audible properly?
Yeah, we can hear you.
So I'll start right from the basics. I think a lot of ground points are covered by both of them. So I have personally faced a long time productionizing an LLM, whatever that I have worked on, and we have developed a recipe. Like maybe this will work for a lot of use cases. So start from the problem itself, like identify the right problem that you want to solve, scope it out. So let's say if your problem statement is automation of human workflows and financial processes, scope out the right problem. Like what is your particular problem statement? Right, start from there. Next step is always define your success criteria and success metrics. So if it was automation, what is your success criteria? Is it the accuracy of the problem that accuracy of the workflow that you're trying to automate, or is it how much of the entire workflow have you now automated, measured in terms of headcount reduction, or so and so? Like basically get an alignment from the stakeholders on what is your success criteria. Depending on that, create a golden data set which you will use for your iterations, like fix it. It has to be statistically significant. Whatever metrics that you're going to measure on that, have those predefined. I think it helps because I work in Google and maybe there's a lot of checking and evaluation that we do before launching anything. So that becomes very necessary in any company, I guess. So get a golden data set and make sure it is representative, free of bias, etc., etc. The next step is to have an idea of your path of experimentation. While we know that you cannot be 100% deterministic because experiments are meant to fail and there is a sort of indeterminacy, have a path, like you know your use case, so you know that okay, some things are going to work, fine tuning is one option, or choosing from techniques like prompting. If your use case is simpler, you should go with few shot, zero shot prompting versus fine tuning your own model. So have sort of steps. After you have decided that, also have an idea of the infra. Like I think these steps should be done in sequence as you start
work before you start working on your project. So after you have decided the infra, know the requirements. Okay, is my use case going to be in batch, or does it need to be a sync use case? That also depends. That also decides the infra that you're going to use. What is the QPS? What is the latency that you expect out of your model? That determines the infra. So that determines your deployment as well. And after I think you've done this, you'll have a good recipe to start from. And as soon as you start iterating and you get a good version, even if it's not the perfect one, I really think people should put it into shadow and start, because we see sometimes difference in behavior in the experimental setup versus shadow, because LLMs are still not the perfect, we've not reached there yet. So start early on, I would say.
Thank you for the great answers. And I think today we've got a real recipe to get started with LLMs. My next question would be like, now we have been talking so much about LLMs and what would be the considerations to do it while we are selecting a specific LLM for a real world application. But how do you strike balance between the model performance and also the computational cost for deploying these LLMs? Can we have an answer from you, Ruchi?
So when I work with LLMs, there are a lot of factors that we need to consider, but I think the three primary factors that we have seen is number one, cost for sure. So for example, there is a GPT-4o mini model and there's a GPT-4o model. GPT-4o mini is approximately 13 rupees for 1000 tokens, and GPT-4o model is approximately 200 rupees for 1000 tokens. That is 16 times cheaper than the GPT-4o model. So if you know that your use case is straightforward, you do not require a lot of tokens, you do not require a lot of LLM understanding and understanding the context, etc., you should not opt for a GPT-4o model or a similar model, right? A 4o mini performs really well for straightforward tasks. So cost is one consideration. I think second consideration would be, what are you trying to solve? I think all of us mentioned this one way or the other, that you need to be very aware of what are you trying to solve. So for example, let's say you want to do classification, you want to do entity recognition of some sensitive data in your text, right? You should think, why would you use a GPT-4o model for a non-response generation task and rather a classification task, right? So you would rather use, let's say, a distilled model like Lekha mentioned, which is, say, trained on entities, so you can store it locally. You have to give the deployment cost, saving it locally. You have to give that cost, and probably that would be lower than you paying it for the APIs. So you need to understand the trade-off between the two costs. And I think third important factor is how accurate is that model on your task. Because I think all the models are benchmarked on certain accuracy matrices like the blue score or the rogue score, but that is an overall score of their performance. But let's say, like, it's very much possible that a model A is able to perform better for a summarization task, even if model B has like an overall better matrix scores on these matrices. But if you have to perform summarization, you should go with model A, because for summarization, it gave you a good accuracy. So beyond these matrices, you should have your golden data set, like Jinal mentioned. It could be synthetic, it could be manually annotated, and you should measure your accuracy on that golden data set, evaluate if that is good for your use case, and then make the choice of the model that you are using.
It's a great answer and a great idea for us to start off with the reduced cost for LLMs. Thank you, Ruchi, for that. And Lekha, I have a question for you. In what scenarios might it be more beneficial to integrate LLM with other AI models, like recommendation engines or vision models? What would be your opinion on this?
That's a very good question. Thank you. So, integrating LLMs with other models like you've mentioned, which is recommendation engines or anything else, is playing a very significant role and is also kind of proving to be a game changer, right? So, for example, in a chatbot, right? You are a customer service company and you want to build a chatbot for your users. So, pairing up with AI-based voice models and LLMs will prove to be a game changer. So I have personally worked with a customer experience company where they have their own chatbot that is paired with the voice-based model, where the users can go from text to voice. Sometimes it's not just the inputs that have come from text, but also goes to the voice sometimes. So having that combination definitely improves the accuracy and also boosts the performance, I believe. Secondly, I think integrating LLMs with recommendation engine is a very good use case, I believe, when it comes to personalizations, right? So, for example, Shopify, right? Imagine a scenario where Shopify is suggesting you a product. It does it based on collaborative filtering of recommendation engine, right? So when it suggests you a product based on your purchase history, right? And then you integrate LLMs to it, which talks about the details of those products. It gives you the nuances of the products. So that combination is a deadly combination when it comes to a user experience point of view, right? And then in the medical industry, right? If you have vision models, AI vision models, right, which does the which reads the X-rays and MRIs, and then you integrate it with the LLMs to provide you a report or generate a report based on those X-rays and MRIs. So isn't that fascinating, right? So I believe, yes, it's evolving a lot, and it is proving to be a game changer in all the industries, be it financial, be it medical, or e-commerce industry like I spoke about, and also the customer experience. So yes, the cost effectiveness is always there, but yes, I think this is to be tried upon, yes.
Thank you for those wonderful use cases, Lekha. Gina, I have a question for you. So, we are talking about so many things on fine-tuning and other things on the LLM, right? So, what role do you think fine-tuning and domain adaptation play in making LLMs? Like, how does it make it more effective for a specific industry? So, you have any examples for this?
Yeah, so I would say what are, I mean, to answer your question very briefly in one line would be every organization, if they use fine-tuning and other domain-specific techniques, it gives them their edge. It gives them differentiation, how they are different from what is already available in the market. So a better question would be still that, is it required? Is fine-tuning or domain-specific always required? So not for everyone, but I'll tell you what LLMs are. So LLMs are basically just, trained on massive public data sets, and they are used to generate novel content. They are trained and such that they know on a lot of generic tasks what to do. But if companies want to train them to do something specific, that is when you need the fine-tuning or domain-specific knowledge. So if I am building a chatbot which will reply to people, let's take Flipkart. If I want to reply to people with a certain set of policies that I have, I don't think Flipkart is a great example, but any example where there are a lot of policies which is not the usual behavior that would want, then you would need your model to know, apart from the general knowledge or the training data that it has, I need to act a certain way. So that is when you do use retrieval augmented generation. So that is in an industry standard. It become very popular now. So RAG is basically what? Along with your prompt and the instructions, you give it a lot of context data. I'll speak about Gemini because I work in Google. So along with the prompt, you're able to attach a lot of documents. So let's say you are building a chatbot and you have a lot of policy documents or a lot of internal data. So when someone talks to your chatbot, and we know how current chatbots are, they are very useless, I would say. They have a fixed set of options and you can't talk beyond a certain point. So if you were to feel like you're actually talking to a human, it should know a lot of stuff. So apart from just like the database queries, which means if I'm Geenal and I want the chatbot to know my inventory or my order history, that is a database call. That you don't need to provide the LLM. But beyond that, extra knowledge, if you want how to act a certain way, that would be done by RAG. Now a question might come like, when do I use RAG, which is a retrieval augmented generation, versus fine tuning? And those two are different. So RAG is mostly very easy and sufficient in a lot of use cases. Fine tuning is a different technique which is required if you want your model to behave a different way or basically learn a different language. What I mean is, it's that difference of external knowledge versus instruction tuning. So if I just wanted to know some extra data, I should definitely go with RAG, versus if I were to train it to behave certain way specific to my task, I would use fine tuning. Yeah, it just gives the companies the edge that they want for their data. Not all problems require fine tuning.
That's a great explanation, Jinal. I think all of us will be doing fine tuning in our houses with a lot of the other things to be done from our families, right? Like maybe that's where we keep using fine tuning more. And that's a great answer. Thank you for that. And Lekha, I have a question for you. Do you think there are any other specific auditing tools or frameworks that you can recommend for LLMs?
Definitely. So we have very famous auditing tools and frameworks which various industries are using, leveraging. So first one that I would like to talk about is IBM's AI 360 Fairness Tool. It's a toolkit which has got close to, I believe, 70 metrics to assess your fairness and 10 algorithms that could mitigate the bias. So this is a fairness tool that is open source, I believe, yes. So this is the first open source fairness toolkit which focuses on eliminating the biases. And the other one that I would talk about is Google's what if analysis. So this basically focuses on trying to eliminate the sensitive data. If it checks if there is any bias that is happening based on the races or community, etc. And then we have, for a very structured approach, we have tools from Microsoft, which is called Microsoft's AI checklist, fairness checklist. And then we have Google's, again, AI, responsible AI toolkit. So I believe these are very famous toolkits that are being leveraged by the industries now. And not last but not the least, I believe there is another open source framework which is called Fair Learn. It's open source, and then it focuses on basically trying to check or assess if the responses given by any LLM is biased towards any particular demographic or race, etc. So yes, these are the tools that I am aware of, and yes, I have used Google's fairness checklist, which provides the guidelines and also best practices for adopting the responsible AIs in place. Yes.
Thank you, Lekha. There are so many tools available. I learned many
Exactly.
tools today. Thank you for that. Ruchi, I have a question for you. So even though there are so many tools available, but there is still a lot of gaps present between LLM research and also to make production-ready, environment-ready. So how can this bridge be gapped? Do you have any suggestions for those?
So I'll share an example. A few days later, I was reading about a case on TechCrunch before the US elections. And there were two companies who created a chatbot where you can talk with it and get to know about the results of the elections, right? Grok was one of them, and people asked it who won the constituency in Ohio. And it said Trump. And the results of Ohio weren't out by that time. Now, why did that happen? Because it had a lot of bias from the tweets that were inclined towards Trump win on Twitter. And that was the data that was fed into it, because that is how RAG would work. Then there was another company known as Perplexity AI, I believe. They had a similar chatbot, same question. It gave a very diplomatic, sophisticated reply, understanding the sensitivity which is carried in such topics of elections and who is going to win the constituency. So it gave a very diplomatic reply. And that is what made the difference between an LLM in production versus a well-designed LLM in production. Because I think in the back end, both of them would be same. But to understand the bias associated with it, to not give out factual information by making that information up is what sets your LLM apart, and that is where a lot of work goes. That is where I think creation has not become difficult, but productionizing it has become more difficult these days. So I think to mitigate these issues, first and foremost thing to care about is what is the data that you are feeding it, because data is the source that helps all the biases to creep in your LLM answers, right? Now, like Lekha mentioned, there are a lot of open sources and guardrails, like guardrails.ai itself, which will help mitigate issues about, it does tone adjustment, it does context sensitivity, it would do your gender, religion, region-based biases, it would tackle all of that. So you can always add a moderation layer. You can even use OpenAI's moderation API. You can add that moderation layer in your input and your output before consuming what people are giving in prompt, before giving out it to people, checking what you're giving out to people. So I think these are some of the ways. And of course, one of the most important thing is monitoring those LLMs. So you're checking every time what is the input going, what is the output. You're doing like monthly checks or weekly checks as to what is happening, what conversation is happening with the AI. Are people trying to do prompt injection? Are people trying to have data leakage? So monitoring your LLM in production post-deployment is also one of the very important steps.
Thank you for that, Ruchi. I think we must be very careful in the type of data training we are doing so that we are not giving out the wrong results or anticipating something and publishing it for the public. As Ruchi mentioned about bias, so I have a question for you, Jinal. So what strategies do you think you have found effective in managing, mitigating risks or bias or hallucinations or misuse of this LLMs? So what do you think would be the best way to mitigate this?
So first of all, I think bias, maintaining bias is a thing which Google strongly is working towards creating a responsible AI toolkit. So responsible AI is an effort which actively Google is investing in, and we do have created several data sets, like Siegel data set is one that is for bias in for non-Western biases, basically, which are related to gender, caste, creed, etc. So that is one. What you can do is hallucination. I've seen a lot happening, especially for classification use cases, and I work heavily on classification. Very naive, but setting the temperature to 0 has worked to reduce the hallucinations. Second is also to remove bias. Have your data sets when you create a golden data set itself, and obviously when also you measure your performance on the test set, have those representative of your entire data. Make sure the bias isn't there itself. So create a well diverse data set. Another thing I would say is prompting. Prompt engineering is an art. So I've learned it the hard way. You have to create your prompt such that you're talking to a baby. I always tell it. Because even though whatever advanced model you use, and obviously it depends also on your use case. If you have a very tricky use case, in that case what I've found is creating a prompt which leaves very little less room for ambiguity for the model helps a lot. I had a problem in which we were asking it something very simple. I would not say that, but when we broke down that classification use case, it had to answer whether this task given is A, B, or C. And it used to hallucinate, it used to apply its own logic, and it was very frustrating because however much I would take that example in few shot and give it that exact example and ask it, please, it should be like this. It used to learn but do the same thing again and again. And I cannot include all examples in the few shot itself, right? So what we did is we broke the prompt into like many sub questions which are very basic, yes or no kind of questions, and that reduced hallucination. We have seen that technique effective in a lot of other teams as well. So make your prompt as simple as possible is one. And lastly, for misuse of models, I would say red teaming, and this is more for fraud perspective because I work in fraud detection. Red teaming, internal red teaming, protecting your model against adversarial attacks. Do that internally, like you can create an LLM to break your own LLM. You have several techniques like these available. So a good check is definitely, as even Ruchi mentioned, even after launching the LLM or before launching the LLM, you can definitely do a lot of internal red teaming and adversarial protection.
Thank you for that, Jinal. I think we will have to give instructions in a very base manner, and that's when we should stop having some assumptions about LLMs so that we'll be in a good position to know the right answers from it. I have a question for you, Lekha. So we have learned so many things about LLMs today. So do you have any successful examples for multimodal AI deployments?
Yes, there are several successful examples of multimodal LLM deployments into production. So, like I just spoke about integrating models with vision technologies and integrating LLMs with which are text-based to voice, etc. These are something that I have personally worked on. So when you say multimodal, it has to have the capabilities of not just summarizing the text, but also understand the voice and sometimes also vision based. Right. So yes, there is no one mantra for a successful multimodal deployment onto production, but there are various techniques that are available today. The personal project that I have worked on, which includes the computer vision model along with the LLMs. So this was to basically identify the quality of water bodies and identify any debris across the water bodies. So this is something that I have personally worked on and have deployed into production. So multimodal LLM deployment is different from normal LLM deployment. So here, when you speak about deploying it into production, you have a lot of latency issues, and you have real-time, if it is a real-time application, then you have to have that IoT kind of sensor data streaming in. And then when it comes to computer vision, I'm talking about the computer vision models where we have an edge device and also IoT sensors which was continuously collecting the data, and then we had the entire pipeline which ends with a dashboard. So passing it through the entire pipeline and then keeping up with the latency as well as the cost. Is a very big challenge that I have faced personally. I mean, I've seen the company facing, and yes, coming up across those challenges, which has the solutions evolving, is must-have experience that everybody who's working on multimodal should know. So yeah, there is no, though we have deployed it successfully and it is working into production, but like Ruchi has mentioned, this continuous monitoring is required, which incurs a lot of cost. It is not just the infrastructure, but also the latency and speed. So let's say if in environments where there is very low traffic, cutting it down, shutting off the Azure, let's say if it is deployed on cloud like Azure, using Azure OpenAI services, making it automating it in a process where it has to shut down on its own, and then which could reduce a lot of cost to the company, is something that we have encountered after deploying the model into production. So yeah, there is no one success mantra is what I believe.
I can totally agree with you, Lekha. Being a site reliability engineer in my previous role, I know the importance of automations and automatically shutting down when one of the things are not necessary. Thank you for that. Ruchi, I have a question for you. So we have learned so many things today. So what would be the advice you will be giving for organizations? that that are starting their journey into the LLMs? Like especially if they are in the non-tech domains, what will be the important things to take care?
So I think I was mentioning this example to one of my colleagues just yesterday that Swiggy has launched or is planning to launch a product, and what it does is that as a customer, you can upload a scribble or an image of what you want to buy, okay, and it could be like very unstructured, and you upload it, and Swiggy Instamart would create a cart for you that this is what you want to buy. It will have the knowledge of what you have previously bought. Say this is the brand of rice that you like or the brand of atta that you like. It would use all of that information. And as a user, you only have to upload the image or write your text, like your WhatsApp diary or whatever, right? So your pain of going there, writing onion 5 kg, potato 5 kg is all gone. Now, for us, like if we are working as data scientists, we can all envision what must be going behind. It is very easy for us to envision. But to think of something like that, to think of, a pain point that could be solved with the convenience of AI that I mentioned is what mattered. So I think we are at a point where every company, every individual has access to, building these POCs, being able to use open source models or pre-trained models, APIs. But what matters most is now, how do you identify the right use case? How do you identify the right business impact associated with it and create the model? Because creation has become very convenient. So this is what like my advice would be, that I think we should give a little more inclination towards technical AI driven by business impact instead of the technical AI era that was previously there. Because at least next 2 to 3 years, this is what I am seeing in general. These are the low-hanging fruits for companies. Now nobody is worrying about how would a Hindi query, how will be translated to English, how will my model understand what is English. Translation is solved. It is essentially solved. So now you think about how you tackle multilingual problem statements, because AI has become so convenient. So I think that is what my advice would be. Let's capture all of these low-hanging fruits and try to identify business impact, because these problems of, training the model, getting the data set, doing data annotation are comparatively very, very less. From the time when we have seen it, when we did not have the data, where data annotation was a problem, I think we have come a really long way. It's a very good time to harness the capabilities of AI.
That's really a great thing, Ruchi. And my suggestion would be start with some small pet projects and see how there'll be ROI on those projects. Maybe that we all will be seeing a lot of pain points across. The thing is, like, we should get initiated seeing those, and maybe that will bring some innovations like Swiggy is doing. Thank you for that, Ruchi. And
So I think I'd say
yeah,
plus one
please.
to that, because identifying the right problem is the key there. Like not all problems can be solved by LLM. People think we just want to bring LLMs into the industry, so it's not the other way around. You bring the problem and then see if it can be solved by LLM.
Yes, I agree. Like I initially said, not every task is solved with an LLM. Yeah, you have to first identify the task
Whether
and
it's the
look
right
for the
one.
alternatives as well.
Exactly, absolutely. We should first identify whether LLM is the right thing to take and as an approach for solving that problem. Thank you for that. Jinal, I have a question for you. So, how do you envision the future of LLMs shaping real world applications, especially in some of the emerging markets we are seeing, like as Ruchi told on the Swiggy side and all? How do you envision the future of LLMs?
So I think we are already seeing a lot of disruptions, right? I mean, you see Notebook LM. I mean, converting a document into a very interesting podcast. You don't have to read documents anymore. We have Copilot. So there is already, I think, a lot of things happening, and it's going to just go further. The way we perceive things. So one area I would really, the way at least I envision it, is financial markets. A lot of manual processes, repetitive tasks should be replaced with models and automation. That is one. Another is healthcare and the whole medical diagnosis process. We can utilize LLMs for easier and more accurate diagnosis, which will help the staff, the healthcare department to treat patients more effectively. Another is seeing your life with having LLMs as an assistant. So a lot of debate is whether LLMs are going to replace humans and people's jobs are going to go. I do not agree fully with that. We have to visualize LLMs as an assistant, like a productivity booster. They are going to make our lives simpler. I no longer have to write a lot of stuff or reply to a lot of emails. I use LLMs so much in my day-to-day tasks, but they are not going to do that on my behalf to a lot of extent because we have not reached there yet at least. So you have to start, that's going to be one big area where we're always going to have LLMs in everything that we do as a support mechanism, having a personal assistant, I would say. And I think the last one I feel is also the education and the skill sector, where you can have a lot of customized education modules designed for specific needs of students. We have a very flat education system right now, so that definitely can use a lot of revolution.
Thank you. And one thing I could add is on the agriculture side. Maybe we can add so many things on agriculture side to make it more interesting or maybe more productive for the farmers. That's one thing which I could think across. Thank you. And I've bombarded you, all three of you, with a lot of questions today. So I wanted to ask if anybody from the audience have anything to ask our panelists today, if you have any questions.
Thank you so much, the panel. I think this has been a lovely session. Learned a lot. My questions to all three of you, anyone of you can answer. There has been a recent rise into the concept of reasoning with LLMs, specifically with OpenAI's O1 models. Do you guys think that that is actually possible? Because there have also been debate regarding the debunking of this aspect of LLMs can reason. Have we hit a cap as to the
Unable to, we can't hear you properly.
There's an echo.
Echo coming.
Okay. With everything you've spoken, my question was regarding the reasoning aspect of LLMs.
Okay.
Specifically, like OpenAI released O1 recently, and there have been papers that have come out debunking the concept of reasoning with LLMs. So do you think that is possible? We're looking into a different domain of AI, where beyond just perception and data aggregation, we're going into something different? Or have we hit a cap? Is this where we're stopped?
I mean, is reasoning possible with, yeah, that I think it's not very explainable. You're talking about explainability, right?
Explainability.
Yeah, we do lack explainability in AI currently. I mean, definitely you have a chain of thought prompting, etc., where you ask the model itself to reason, and that is a way of knowing what the model has thought while giving you a verdict. That is one way I know of. But in general, how they internally work is dependent on a lot of massive data set that they are trained on. So as far as my knowledge, I would say currently it is not very explainable.
I agree. The explainability part is still, I believe we have a gap here. And we would like to see things evolving on those areas. And I have seen a lot of research papers talking about it, debunking the reasoning part, etc. But yes, there are futuristic approaches that people are trying to adopt. It could be agentic RAG, or you must have heard of agentic RAG that is trying to solve this reasoning kind of problems, but not yet there.
In that case, do you think multi-agent systems could be deployable somewhere in business use cases? Since you mentioned agentic workflows.
They are currently being used, right? We do have agentic workflows everywhere.
No, in the sense multi-agent systems that can probably improve the explainability or...
Definitely, yes. Like I've said, the agentic RAG or the multi-agent systems that are being adopted on a very large scale into productions as well. Yes, they could be leveraged for maybe overcoming these kind of reasoning issues. But we are yet to do a lot of research on it. Yes, exactly.
So I think agentic workflow is something that's pretty hyped right now, and it is working really well. But fundamentally, what is happening everywhere is that the LLM is predicting the next word.
Yes.
Even agentic RAG, it is prediction of the word only. Even if it does classification, it is prediction of the next word only. So for even the reasoning part that you mentioned, there won't be LLMs who are able to do reasoning. LLMs are doing what they are doing. They have not improved essentially. It is us who have improved in terms of how do we harness the most from the LLMs. And if we are able to do it, then I think reasoning from LLM will also be possible. Agentic workflows and deployment will also be possible. So it's more on us than on the LLMs.
Thank you so much for that questions. And I think it's a wrap from our side. Thank you so much, panelists. And I hope if you have some more questions, all of our panelists will be available here and you can have a chat with them. Thank you so much for having us here.
Thank you.
I'd like to request Ramya Victor to please present a small token of our appreciation to our panel members. I'd like to take this time to once again thank our panelists for that very interesting talk on the topic employing LLMs from research to reality.
Of the audience, because it's a really proud moment for all of us.